Give me a
Pretty good.
monologue for a second there while I just tweak the
A
audio a
monologue,
tad. Yeah.
talking about how you always give me crap because all this stuff is never set up and I have issues with audio and all of that. And now you're experiencing what I experience all the time as we're trying to always get these things set up.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course I do so, but the difference is I only have one stream I handle, and I'm
That's
well
true.
aware of that.
That's true.
This is
Yeah, I handle
damn
too
right it's
many.
true, and I know you handle too many streams. This is literally how it goes, y'all. Like we're professional-ish. We have an idea of what we want to do and what we want to talk about, and then we're literally
Yeah.
just riffing the entire time. So if you, good sir, are good to go, then I think I am as well.
Yeah. The only thing you forgot on your scene is you don't have our names, so they don't know who we are.
Well, that's what intros are for, and that's what this segue is for, and that's why we welcome all of our wonderful, wonderful friends by saying, welcome. Welcome on into the Snap Back podcast, where you snap and we snap back. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming, and once again, as always, the unlabeled and bearded Default Dan. Good afternoon for once.
Yes. Good
to you,
afternoon.
good sir.
Good
How are
afternoon.
you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Busy day. A lot of stuff to do, which again did kind of take away from us doing the super early morning show, but we're here. We're here. We're excited. A lot of stuff happening in Marvel Snap as of yesterday with OTAs, and just a lot of stuff coming in. New cards, next week. All kind of good stuff.
I will say too, as I'm looking at it, like it looks like, granted, we're only an hour apart, but on the video podcast, it looks like you're in a hole in a cave and it's like 3 a.m, pitch dark. And my sun literally just started
Yeah.
blaring into my window. So we kind of have this angel and devil weird hybrid look thing going on. Like I'm going to turn off this lamp. No, that's just even weirder because wow,
Yeah.
like we are very polar opposite right now, but it's a
Yeah.
small little
We got
small
the
little
black.
feature.
We got the blackout curtains. We got the blackout curtains to kind of make it.
I mean, I
feel
could
the way it
close the
needs to
blind,
with the
but
lighting.
we've already started recording at this point, so we're just going to move on from it because we have a good amount to say the least to talk about. We had
Yeah.
the patch we've been waiting for finally has appeared. Okay, it has finally dropped. Nerf has been backhanded, and we need to talk about it. So we need to look at bounce. We need to say, hey, thank you, but now you are a different kind of good deck. There were lots of other buffs that came down the pipeline also, and it's
Yeah.
kind of led to this unique reapproach where everybody is now, okay, hold on. Bounce isn't the best deck, I don't think anymore, so I have to play other things now. Crap. I have to be creative again. I have to look for new
Do we?
decks.
Do we?
Or exactly. Do we? Or do we just say go play Silver Surfer? Because there's a number of reasons to, do so. We'll take a look at the deck of the week as well, as always.
Yeah.
And this is our friendly little simple reminder to ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy what you hear or see, depending on where you are, whether you're on your favorite podcast platform or you're watching us here live on YouTube, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that follow, rate us at ratethispodcast.com. Let us know how we're doing because we think we're doing a good job because we have been nominated now. We've been nominated.
We've been acknowledged.
We've been recognized, as a potential podcast of the year for the Marvel Snap Awards. Links to that will also be in the description in the YouTube side specifically. So, because the voting is live. So, let's move into it. Let's talk about the massive OTA changes that have happened because Bounce is a completely different deck nowadays, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. And there's a big thing here where what they hit the deck with was specifically OTAs. So there could be more changes in the future. There could be some, modifications. I know in the past you've continued to harp on Angela a lot.
Oh yeah.
And
I still
again,
think it
the
needs
change
to happen.
and the change that you're talking about is very different. It's a functionality change. It's not an OTA change. So it would be a patch. And still some other stuff there. The thing is, this hurt the deck a lot. So I still have my bounce deck. I've slightly changed it a couple different ways. Still able to win in conquest with it, still able to win matches with it, but you do have to play it differently. If you guys don't know, some of the big changes that came in was Kitty to start it off, right? So when you look at Kitty, Originally 1-0, but every time she returned, she got +2. So typically in a match, she was 8, 10, power, like maybe 12 power. She was huge. And depending on how you were able to bounce her and potentially hit her with like Bass to start and things like that, it made a huge, huge difference because if you did Bass turn 1 and turn 2, you played her and bounced her back. Now she's a 5. Compared to now, it's just the way she's working. It's much harder to do that, and she doesn't get as big because it is only just a +1 instead of a +2 on the bounce back. And I like that they lowered her ceiling, which I think is good as far as the way the ones work. Again, you look at Sunspot, you look at Nebula, most of them get around 6, 8 being their top end, and now Kitty Pride's around in that 8 being a top end for her in most matches, but normally, typically, based on me playing and everything I've played with her, she's normally like a 6 coming down on
Yeah.
turn 6. So
Rather than 10.
I like, yeah, and I like that. I like that with Kitty within the deck, but honestly, I don't think that's really the bad nerf about the deck, and I'll get to that in a second. But the next one, and I just want to run through the cards first, but the next one is Hit Monkey. So again, if you guys have played with Hit Monkey, seen Hit Monkey gets absurd. So especially if you can play him, bounce him, play him, and they really took that away because he went up to a 3-drop. So instead he was a 2-0 +2 for every other card played. Now he's a 3-2. So they're giving you that 2, right? They're giving you a free 2 by adding the 1 there. But this means you can't do him plus Beast unless you have Elysium or I don't know, maybe some weird other play. I can't think of another one where you get an extra energy like that. Maybe a Psylocke or something on 4 to do it on 5, but then you're messing with your curve, so it's not worth it. But but because of this, Hitmonkey's still good, but he really doesn't have the play bounce unless you play him like him plus like a 1-drop or something on 4, and then 5 you pick him up. So he's much smaller, or you've got some other cards I'll talk about in a minute kind of splashed into the deck. So Hitmonkey taking a hit right here. And I think he was, this was a change that was needed because Hitmonkey really was another big finisher in the deck. And so the third card they hit, which realistically got hit in a lot of decks, right? But really, this was a big card for the bounce deck because it was a pretty easy turn 1, 2, 3 play alongside your Kitty, alongside one of your other cards. And Spider Ham going to a 2-2 instead of that 1-drop really hurt the pig. He's still very good, but now you have to think about him. Originally, but being at a 1-drop, you could easily be like, all right, I'll throw him in the deck. But once you get into 2s and 3s, you have to really look at your curve. And I think that this was probably one of the biggest hits of the deck because this card saved you as a bounce player against a lot of your end game decks, your nulls, your deaths, your Galactus, all those cards that would just like wreck you if you weren't paying attention. This takes that away. So those are really the big 3 they hit, but I want to get your opinions too on the bounce deck. I don't know. Have you played bounce since the nerfs? Have you picked the deck back up?
Like many players in Marvel Snap, if you nerf a card, I don't want to touch it for a week at least, because I want to see from the community as well, from, whether it be Twitter posts, whether it be live streams, whether it be, anybody on social media, looking at the stats on snap.fan, looking at the new version of the card that's been reduced down versus the latter of being buffed up. I want to see how those numbers normalize. I want to see the different use cases, and we've been starting to see some of them. There was a Spider Ham deck that I went up with earlier today, and it was built into the brand new version of C2. And C2 got very strong, very, very strong for buff reasons, which we'll talk about afterwards. But Spider Ham in a Cerebro 2 deck now is absolutely stellar. And it's little changes like that that we're seeing, that when you start to reconceptualize when nerfs happen like this, like I said,
Mhm.
you're getting forced into another position. You're getting into this uncomfortable place of, oh, they touched the easy out. I was playing the
Yeah.
bounce deck because I was trying to rank up, or I ranked up, and this is just my, leisure. I don't have to think about it. I'm going to win most of the time style deck.
Yeah.
This now, at least in my opinion, with this kind of adjustment, because I agree, Spider Ham is probably the biggest adjustment out of all of them, for out of the three of them.
Yeah. Just
I
because
think
it
that,
touches so many decks.
yeah,
The other two cards truly, at least prior to this, really just stuck into this bounce deck. So
yep,
modifying those, yeah, you hurt the bounce deck. But I mean, Spider Ham was in the Evo Lockjaw decks. It was in the the bounce deck. It was just thrown in anywhere and everywhere because it
everywhere.
kills a card in their hand. So
Yep. And I like
unless
that
it's
the devs
Infinite.
also, yeah, and I like that they also acknowledged outright the way that they did it, and the reason that they did it was because it was specifically because it was so cheap and you could just throw it into any deck. It was
Yeah.
auto default killing too many decks
Yeah.
simultaneously, not because of it just being a good card in bounce, but because of how debilitating it was to other specific styles of deck.
Yeah.
And it's not about just bounce when they talk about the Spider Ham adjustment. It's about the entire overall meta scope of the game, and
Yeah.
looking at why does this card win, or how often does this card win, specifically because of a condition of it. Well, uh, again, these are stats that we can't see, but the amount of games
Yeah.
in which Spider Ham was played that it took out Apocalypse, She Hulk, or Death, for example, the percentage of
Yeah.
win rate on that is through the roof. So, because those are, key cards to certain archetypes or certain deck layouts. So I like that they acknowledge Spider Ham specifically. I'll go to
Yeah.
Kitty Pride, where I agree that Kitty Pride is still absolutely fantastic. I think Kitty Pride is a great card, but now her ceiling on average is around 6 or 7, which, if you're choosing to sacrifice that much energy to get her use case now you've got to look at it and think, is it worth my while? And there's
Yeah.
a very strong case to be made for Kitty Pride to no longer being a turn 1, 2, or 3 card, because the amount of energy that she's culminating for it. I look at the standard base levels of power when it comes to the no ability cards all the time. And I look at Cyclops at 3, 4. After that, it shoots up to the Thing at 4, 6. If you play
Yeah.
Kitty Pride down on turn 4, then 5, and then 6, she essentially gets 4 power in total, which means you've cost 3 energy for 4 power. At that point, I think that she's now a moot point as a 1-cost card to drop. After
Yeah.
that, it becomes actually a waste of energy, because the argument was made prior that, yeah, you could play her every single turn and she's going to be a 110, and that's like playing a 610, which is a damn strong 6-drop. That is no longer
Yeah.
the case anymore. In best case scenario, you're now looking at a 6 or a 7, depending on if you get her down turn 1 or 2. That's not
Mhm.
a good use of energy. So now Kitty Pride's use case completely changes. Now you're looking at her to be a curve filler, in my opinion,
Yeah.
rather than a curve builder for decks that are not using Angela. Because Angela is going to get the
Right.
ramp up, and that's another situation. But if you're not
Yeah. Yeah.
using Kitty Pride and Angela, that's where we're going to see Kitty Pride fall off a little bit, because it's not as necessary in those archetypes anymore. Sometimes it's just better to hold on to a 0, because now you've got a 3-cost card, or instead to hold
Well,
on to some other more valuable tech-focused 1-cost cards that you could play on turn 5, like Iceman. That's a bigger
yeah.
influence on turn 5 as a 1-cost, versus let me get 1 more power for my Kitty Pride if I'm not ramping anything else up synergetically.
Yeah, I think definitely with Kitty and her changes, you have to understand in your deck when you're building it, where are you going to play her? To your point, there's a lot of decks that were able to kind of put her in like a She-Hulk Taskmaster type build, right? Where you're going to play She-Hulk early, Taskmaster plus Kitty, or like we saw in Wednesday Night Snap the other day, Shuri, Kitty Pride into
Yeah.
Taskmaster. Like there's a lot of different ways you can still use her, but you do have to think about that power as she's coming down. And realistically, the reason why she's still a good card for bounce is specifically, like you mentioned, Angela Bishop, being able to play her plus Hitmonkey plus Mysterio, right? Like it's those types of plays where she fits in well at that one drop curve. But yes, in most cases, now her power is not going to be that huge to where you kind of have to figure out, am I going to have a spot on turn 6 to play her? If not, because if you don't play her turn 6, that means now you've wasted energy throughout every single turn, unless you have a bishop, unless you have an Angela, where you're at least getting some value out of it.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting nerf. I think it's a needed nerf. Again, it brings now the whole argument, because prior to this, and just like when she was first released, she was an S tier 1 drop, because not only do you get to kind of have that power, move that power, but you could also adjust priority. And now with the fact that she's going to be so low, it's also a little difficult to control your priority as easy as you used to. Between that and the Hitmonkey change and a few other things, I've noticed it's been a lot harder to make sure that I don't have priority on turn 6, because of the way you have to play the deck now, because of the way the beast bounce works with, not having Spider Ham as a 1 drop, not having Hitmonkey as a 2 drop. So there's a lot of those little pieces where we're going to see it be a little bit more difficult to pilot, but still a really good deck in general.
Yeah, I think
So
I think we also need to elaborate a little bit more with Hitmonkey, because I think with the Hitmonkey change in particular, we're already seeing people saying, "Oh, okay, you're going to get rid of that. Great. Now we're just going to add in Wasp." And
yeah, I
there's
did do that.
this there's this ease of use case in that one aspect of, okay, sure, you're going to throw in Wasp to make this work and bounce, and okay, sure, I can live with that. That's fine, because at least if you're going to say that you're now getting your +2 power because you have Wasp in the deck, you've taken away a tech piece from bounce. You've taken away,
Yeah.
obviously, now that Spider Ham, and now put it with instead Wasp, and look at the value of effect difference. Even if it was an evolved Wasp, look at the value of effect difference between having Spider Ham be one of those 1 drops that you could bounce back and forth, or now having just a plain old little tiny 0/1 Wasp. And it's a
So
much different scenario.
yeah, and I think that that's where you have to rethink the deck a little bit. And I was actually pulling up my list that I was using a little bit ago, because we did kind of drop a couple cards. And the 2 cards I was looking at that we dropped currently are Shang-Chi and Jeff. So Jeff was always a really good card to get you into locations that you can't get into. But what we've kind of, again, a lot of people are different experimentations with different cards, but like what we're finding is Jeff isn't as good as he used to be based on these curves. I don't have a giant kitty pride. So now to use 2 energy for 3 compared to what you can do with all the other stuff, Jeff's not getting played as much. And Shang-Chi is right now, he's out because we've, and this will change. I guarantee
Yes.
this will change. But right now, there's so much Nimrod in the format right now.
Yeah.
There's not the big, huge Panther decks. There's not the big, huge, even like High Evo. High Evo's kind of taken a little step back to where we're not seeing the giant Hulks and things that you really wanted your Shang-Chi for. So for that reason, we've kind of pulled Shang-Chi out for now. We still have our Iron Man, so we can try to go on top of some of these decks. But that's one of the big issues we have right now is Shang-Chi is just, it feels like a bad card because Nimrod is running amok everywhere right now. And it's not stopping anytime soon as we go through some of the new buffs.
Specifically, Shuri
some of
Nimrod. Okay, it has to be Shuri Nimrod in particular. It's that specific combo as an alt win condition, especially in Phoenix Force decks now, even more so as a backup plan. Like, who we'll talk about now too, because several cards got buffs on top of this. Enough with the bad news. We all know bounce has been changed forever. Okay, let's move on though, because this is the first time in Marvel Snap history that they have mid-season changed. Like, are the sales that bad on Phoenix Force that they had to move him from 5/6? Like,
they're not. But here's the reason why I believe most of the change came when they announced Phoenix, and when we talked about it, and I read the card and I said, "Great, I can move every turn. I can move one turn. Like it's a 5 drop
Yeah.
that comes out, meaning I can only move turn 6, which realistically doesn't matter. Just like when you play Vision on 5, you typically don't move them on 6 unless like there's a location you can't get to and you need to move Vision. Like where you play him is where he stays. So I think personally it makes a lot more sense to make it cheaper so that you can have 2 turns to move, so 5 and 6 to move. So I think that was probably a little bit of it, but I'm not sold, and I really don't like what they did with the adjustment. So if you guys haven't seen, I'm sure you guys have, but Phoenix Force was a 5, now it's a 4. I can't remember what the power was. It was a 6.
It was 5/6, changed to 4/5.
5/6. Yeah, it was a 5/6 changed to 4/5. So that way their argument was multiple man. So I do not like the fact that now we've just made multiple man not Shang-Chi-able, and we can have multiple mans multiple times because we have another buff coming up that also works with this deck. So it's almost like Second Dinner went from loving the destroy deck to loving the move deck, because now if you guys don't know, multiple man on 2, you eat multiple man with a Carnage or Venom or whatever, and then you bring it back with Phoenix Force. Originally, your play pattern was Shuri on 4, Phoenix on 5 to make an even bigger multiple man. And maybe that's another reason why they made it a little cheaper, so you would maybe not do that. But I think you still can do all of that with the other change that we got.
Absolutely can still do that.
So
absolutely, and it's fantastic when you do so.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
like,
it's a big deck. And it makes multiples. So again, that multiple man gets the move ability. When multiple man moves, he makes a copy of where he moved from. So now you just get a whole bunch of multiple men's that are now 9 power everywhere on the board, with things like Ghost Spider, Heimdall, being able to move it yourself. So like moving it and then doing something gives you a whole nother copy because it moves. So it's just bonkers at this point.
There's so much now with the Phoenix Force deck because as they elaborate on that, they wanted it to be specifically at 8 power. And they wanted it to get to that point of saying, "Ooh, you're almost Shang-Chi-able, but here, go ahead and put several of them out on the board." You know, it's in this new curve, excuse me, in this new curve, as you talk about the new version of, get multiple man down. With the change that also happened, and I'll forecast over to Magik, where now you can play Magik even earlier now. So many people are playing Magik on the board. And I had a game where I was not running Killmonger, and they went in that exact simple curve of Human Torch. I had played Magik. So they had 7 turns, and they literally played 3 cards and won. Sorry, 4 cards and won. They went Human Torch, Carnage, waited, got the Phoenix Force down, moved it on turns 5, 6, and 7, and then Taskmastered it. And it was 256 power cards on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And it was just wild to watch because I'm like, and I knew there's nothing I can do. I had to retreat, but there was nothing that I can do. And that hurt.
And it's hard because the only card that really specifically deals with that is Killmonger because of the fact they can move it. So the other thing with this Phoenix Force that I've noticed when I'm playing with it or playing against it is it's very hard to Shang-Chi it. It's very hard to, in that case, even like Electra it, because of the fact that at the start of turn, it moves first. It's already moved. So you have to predict where you think it's going to move to try to hit it. Unless, again, in that case, you have something like a Killmonger. But yeah, with a multiple man, it's the same way.
Yeah. And simultaneously with this too, even if you're not doing the multiple man line, this one move alone just brought destroy yet another reach mechanic, because one of the biggest downsides to Phoenix Force that everybody talked about was, sure, it's a destroy card in a way because you're bringing back an actual destroyed item. But what's the benefit in doing so? Because you could just Nimrod instead and then have 2 things. But now if you have this on Phoenix Force earlier on by having something get destroyed, a whole nother conversation, because now you're even looking at Storm in a destroy deck being an actual strategy again. And
Yeah.
think about these other secondary mechanics, because you can get a movable card like Vision out on
Yeah.
turn 4 instead of waiting for turn 5. And that flexibility is why I think Phoenix Force is going to be slept on, even though someone's going to bring it to a tournament in a destroy deck and
Yeah.
absolutely dominate. I don't know who it is. I don't
So
know how they're going to figure it out, but something's going to happen, which is what leads me to one simple point on this, with this whole re-arise of when it does happen. Get ready, okay? Because it will happen, folks. At some point, Phoenix Force it's kind of like Nimrod right now. Like 2 months later, we had an epic, resurgence now of Nimrod coming into the game, and everyone who loves Destroy has been playing all the Nimrod versions, the WSF, versions, if you will, right? When it does happen,
Yeah.
Red Skull will be your best friend, because then you'll be able to put it into a lane, bring up all of those things, and then destroy it with a Shang-Chi, because now it's over that magical 8 power that it's sitting at. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if 3 months from now they made Phoenix Force a 4/6. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think it needs to be Shang-Chi-able, like with that, because I don't think you can touch multiple man because of the way multiple man works. All right, so I'm gonna send you a screenshot because what's even better than the Nimrod deck is Nimrod with Phoenix. So
Nimrod with Phoenix. Oh man.
Yeah. So that's what I just sent you a picture of one of the matches I had where I was actually able to do that. So it's going to take a little bit to be able to do it. Like, again, I had super what is that? The Ford super.
Sheesh.
I'm not blanking.
The super flow.
Yeah, super flow. So I could get stuff out earlier. But yeah, it's a deck where Nimrod still works in it. And you bring back the second Nimrod, and then when you kill that Nimrod, it's bigger, so it can even make copies of itself and things like that.
You've got 21 power Nimrods here on the screen from bringing back Nimrod on turn 6 and then killing it with with that Carnage that's over on the last lane. Like, that's a nice combo to think about. I had not thought of that before, and that's congratulations, Default Dan. You have just ruined Marvel Snap for us all. I hate you because now you've got me thinking about Phoenix Force, Nimrod, Carnage, Venom, Magik, Ghost Spider, all of this, because Ghost Spider also got touched, and that makes a lot of sense in this style of deck too, with multiple man, where now they changed Ghost Spider from being a 2/3 to now being a 1/2. So you could go ahead and do that multiple man play on turn 5 even simultaneously. Just real simple. Destroy that multiple man, Phoenix Force on 5 like you used to, but then also Ghost Spider it right after it comes back and get 2 of those right off the bat before you head to your turn 6 Heimdalls, like, or other turn 6 movements. Like, this is absolutely shocking to me that they moved her already.
And I'm curious if Glenn has answered this question or not. For multiple man, when you make the copy of multiple man, your copy can't move. And I'm wondering if that's actually a bug. Like,
that is a bug. They have stated that. Yeah.
So if that gets fixed, this deck's gonna get even stupider, because now you're gonna have every turn 2 multiple men can move.
Oh my God.
And make copies of themselves. Right now, only 1 can. So like, yeah, I think when it comes to this deck, they're going to have to like readdress some stuff. And it would not surprise me if they really look at Phoenix of how to, maybe she does need to be a turn 5. I don't know. But like, when they fix some of this stuff, giving Magik on 3, because realistically, I mean, you have your kill on 3, but if like you don't line up with the right cards, like giving yourself a turn 7's huge in that deck. Or if Magik ends up being everywhere else and you're getting the turn 7 anyway from them, like it's gonna be a problem. Specifically with multiple man. So I don't know how you fix that or anything like that, but this deck will make a resurgence because there's not many things that can stop it outside of like a Professor X. Like there's not much, because you can move. And it's gonna be interesting to see what happens over the next couple weeks as people start to pick this up, because when it dropped that first 2 days, I feel like everybody was running the deck, then they quit. And now with all of these changes, the deck is 100 times better than it was.
Oh my God, yes. Just
Yeah.
people will pick the deck back up in the future with more destroy cards coming out into the game, and they'll be like, wow, how did I sleep on this? And we'll be sitting here a couple seasons in going, we told you. But switching now to two other, in my opinion, very influential adjustments. We had the Living Tribunal, which many of us have been calling for. That Tribunal is just underwhelming, and we could justify in prior arguments turning it from a 6/6, which is what it formerly was, to giving it more power because it's just spreading the power over everywhere. So they've upped it to now being a 9 power card.
And I'm lazy because he wasn't 6/6 either right when he first came out or when he was data mined, but he was something else when he was data mined.
He was 6/4.
Maybe he was a 6/4. Okay.
He was a 6/4.
Yeah, that's right. Because then everybody looked at it and said, look at negative. He's going to be insane. Yeah. So I like this change. I play with Tribunal a good bit, like for fun, like not competitively or anything like that, but for fun. I tried him in the Hela decks. He actually got me like last season, not this season, last season. I think he was the one that actually got me all the way to infinite in the Hela deck.
Yeah. We had it on stream.
And he's good. Yeah, he's good. He's not like, it's one of those things where realistically, if you get your Hela combo off, you pretty much win most of the time anyway, but it just kind of guaranteed the win so that you didn't things go into the wrong lane and then, you messed it up. But this change to 6/9 is massive. So last night or the last 2 weeks, I said on the podcast earlier, the Ben Brode special. So that's been one of my decks that I've had tucked away on my deck list for a long time. I pull it back up every now and then, make a couple changes, just to have fun with it. And this Living Tribunal's in that deck. And when you go through a turn, especially with Magik being everywhere right now with a turn 7, when you go through the possibility of having, whether it's Onslaught or whatever, but all you really need is Iron Man, Onslaught, and then you throw down, Living Tribunal. I've had some games where I have Howard the Duck and Iron Lad in the deck, so I know what he's copying, and sometimes he'll copy an Iron Man, a Living Tribunal, or something cheaper, and so I can stack like Onslaught plus Mystique when I get into that turn 7. Like it's been insane how I've taken away matches where I literally just played into one lane and nobody could stop it. So this change was huge. Even though it just looks like 3 power, with those cards you would play with him like Iron Man, that 3 power is 6 power. When you throw an Onslaught, now it's way more than that, and it's huge.
Yeah, even bringing back our old friend Omega Red and throwing that into the ongoingness of the deck, 1000%. I agree. Living Tribunal, I ran him last night in the new Hela variation that we teched out like on stream. We teched a conversation about building the quote unquote perfect Hela deck for about half hour, 45 minutes with the chat about add this, take away this, try this, because it started off as an echoed Tribunal deck, trying to make sure that you guaranteed that MODOK and Hela would not get Cosmoed. That's how the whole idea started. And it always consisted about having Tribunal in the deck because of that ability with lockdown and disruption constantly popping up into the game. This made a lot of sense to have Tribunal in there. And that one extra power won us several games instead of it being a tiebreaker. It gave us that, that little bleed over that you need just to barely push yourself over the top. And Living Tribunal now is a really important card, not just in Hela decks, but like you said, strategic Tribunal decks, ongoing decks in particular, which is why Echo is so good. Also, is absolutely fantastic. Now, the reason it was so fantastic was because of the biggest change that happened over this entire OTA, which has completely taken over the game. And I'm still getting messages over the last 15, 20, whatever it is, hours that this change has been live. Magik now being a 3-cost card. She went from being a 5/3 to now being a 3/2, which will already been forecasted by the devs where they've told us they will make her ability to be able to be played on turn 6 again, but
No,
not with
no,
the extension ability on there too. Like she's technically going to be an even better option later on again. So you can play
I
her,
think
but
the
the
way I
on
read it,
reveal of lip, yeah, hang on, I'm
yeah,
getting
you
there.
got it.
Dear
You
God,
got it.
like it's
The
you
way
can
you worded
play
it was
her.
weird, but you got it now. You got it
Yeah,
now.
I had it the whole time. You just didn't follow me through the woods. But you can play her on turn 6 in the
Yeah.
next update, but it will not activate the on reveal portion of this, which is change this location to limbo. So you're still going to be able to use her power as a 3/2. And the second you say 3-cost card, you start thinking Silver Surfer, but we put her into a Hela deck, and that Hela deck was just, it's my deck of the week. We'll get to it in a little bit, but it
Yeah.
was just wild watching the consistency. And I'm seeing Magic more than obviously I've ever seen Magic before, because now everybody's throwing Magic into their decks right now.
Yeah.
Hands down, it's the most influential change, even over nerfing bounce, in my opinion.
Okay, so did you play in the beta when the
No.
negative decks were running around?
No.
Okay, so I can't remember exactly when you started. So prior to when you started, Magic was a 5/3. Magic could be played on turn 6,
That I know.
which I still think she just needs to go back there. But she was one of the most played cards because of that deck. And again, there's other factors in that deck. Dino. So I'm going to age myself with the game. For those who didn't play beta, Dino was a 3/0. So you could play him super early, and you literally would just negative your deck. And negative was like a 4/0 or something. You would negative your deck, and you would be able to play Dino, Zola, Iron Man, Mystique, all for free because they all turned into zeros and they were insane. And Dino would be like 16 power. And you would just like go to town with the deck. But Magic would turn into a 3/5. And you would be able to play her on turn 3, 4, 5, whenever you wanted to get that extra turn 7. And it was insane. And so one of the reasons they kind of like started to mess with her was people were doing a lot of it on turn 6 because it was just 3 power when you flipped it. So now that she is a 3, I guarantee you, unless your deck is scared of a huge top end, Magic will end up in almost every deck, because having one extra turn for almost any deck out there outside of like a Khazar, maybe like a Patriot deck, like you want that extra turn because you have 2 extra spaces, because you have 2 big 6 drops that you want to play. And so Magic will end up in at least 60 or 7% of the decks, which means you're going to see it 80% or more in the matchup, whether it's in your deck or their deck, when you break out all the math and stuff. So yeah, I love the change to Magic. I just am stating it. We're going to get a lot of turn 7s. So battle modes, tournaments are going to be very interesting when every game goes to turn 7 now instead of turn 6. But that also opens up the door. Play your Scarlet Witches. Play your Rhinos. Play, like we'll talk about Surfer in a minute, but like play those cards to where they think they get a turn 7 and you stop them, because a lot of people, especially right now, a lot of people are not experienced with playing with Magic, and they forget if Limbo goes away, game's lost. Like there's been a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm going to play my Galactus and then I'll have my Null next turn. And it's like, nope, it's not how it works. That was prior to the change that Galactus got, where now you have to be winning the location. But like, yeah, it's a lot of that kind of interaction. But I love the change in general. She's definitely going to show up better in some decks, like a Cerebro 2 deck, like a Surfer deck. But at the same time, you got to know how to play her. So
I agree. I think it's easy for people to just say, here, play Magic. Okay, I get a free turn, and then you just play it out and you don't even think about your opponent and what they can do to counter it. Because I think there are a total of, 6 different cards in the game right now, until next week when there's 7 cards that can alter the state of a location. And some of them are really damn prominent. You know, Storm, like you said, Scarlet
Storm.
Witch.
Yeah.
We're gonna see more rhinos again. I expect Snow Guard even to have a small resurgence for the same reason. That's right. I said it.
No.
So
If
I
if it
wouldn't be
was
surprised. I wouldn't be
if it was the
surprised.
same turn, I think if it was the same turn, Snow Guard may have a chance. The fact that it gives them one more turn to know it's coming, it specifically with Magic, it's not going to matter. They know it's coming. They know they don't have the extra turn. But I don't know. I think that's the problem with Snow Guard is it needs to happen the turn you play it. So that way, you know, I'm playing it right now to shut this location off because it's turn 6 or it's turn 5, and I want to get into that location. I get that, like, you may want to turn off, I don't know, Sanctum to play something next turn, but like, I don't know, it's a little weird.
Well, you can't really turn
I
off
see it both
Sanctum,
ways,
but yes.
Well, you know what I mean? Like,
It's like the worst
one
one
of
you
those
could
weird.
like. There's like 100-something locations, and you pick the one
Yeah,
location you
I pick the
literally
worst.
can't play anything into.
But if you turn
Well
it
done.
off, though, if you turn off a Snow Guard, can you play into it next turn?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
the
what I'm
only
saying.
one.
So I get it. I get it with like the way it works today with
Yeah.
Sanctum. But I'm saying, like, I think if you could cancel out a limbo of the turn, you could cancel out like an Asgard the turn it's happening, like whatever it is. Like,
Right.
I think that would be a different play pattern, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think the Magic change in particular is unnecessarily powerful because the whole state of the game has changed. And the fact that, I mean, the first thing I did was I made a deck I called Rise, which was just Silver Surfer everything. Because
No,
now
we're not to Silver Surfer yet. We're not to
I
Silver
know.
Surfer yet.
I know.
Okay.
We're about to be soon, but I'm just saying it's called foreshadowing. My God. So
You're
I made a
foreshadowing
Silver
too
Surfer
far
deck.
into the future.
No, I'm not. I know the Great Web is still coming. Hang on. Okay. But think about it. Like that was the first thing I did. When I got the information, I was like, I'm gonna make a Silver Surfer deck out of this because Sarah Silver Surfer is now back versus regular Silver Surfer, where you don't necessarily need it. I even have a video out from months ago, where I said Magic is better than Sarah in Silver Surfer decks. And now you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, it's just absolutely insane what this one change is going to do. So I'm incredibly excited to see how the game changes, and more so, 30 days from now, does Magic become a 4-drop? That's what I want.
I think so. I think so. I think as we're kind of going through these buffs and these cards as we transition to locations, I would say the 2 cards that still stand out to me right now that still need to be touched again. I think Magic needs to be a 4. I think 3 at 3.
Sadly.
It's too early. It's too early of a thing. I think you need to be able to do it on turn 4 and 5, just like she used to be able to do it on turn 5 and 6. You have a window. And then the other change I would make would be, I think Spider Ham needs to be a 3. This is a first step of what they're going to try with it, but I still think he's going to be too prevalent at 2. I think he needs to be a 3. I think he's such a powerful, such a powerful play. I think it's one of those things where he needs to fall into the spot of you're really truly making a decision to put him in your deck. We'll see. He may drop off the map at a 2, but after playing him for the last 24 hours, whatever, I feel like he's still just as good at a 2, and he's still going to show up in too many decks because of the fact he's taking away your card.
I think the risk of knowing that you can play it on 2 and that percentage chance of knowing do you have a high power card, a high cost card in your hand, also the evaluation changes on that for the risk versus the reward, because if you make him a 3-drop, you increase the potential chance that you pull a higher cost card, yes. But if you continue the pattern and make him a 3/3 for that value that you're looking to play on turns only 3, 4, or 5, I don't see his value being anywhere close to being good. I see him dropping down tremendously in value at that point, to the point that he's not influential anymore. I think at a 2, you have to make the conscious choice that this is a defensive move. It's just like playing Scarlet Witch. It's a conscious choice at 2 cost to make a random thing happen. If anything, I'd say Spider Ham should have been on curve with everybody else at 2/3. but I can respect it too. I can respect it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because there are
and again, like I said, I don't know if they'll make the change. We'll have to see what it looks like. I'm just saying I'm still seeing him too much. I'm still seeing way too much value in him. But again, if people stop playing him because he's a 2 now, then leave him a 2. He'll be fine. But I could see, just like we said with Magik going up, I could see them potentially a month from now, if he's still a problem, going up a little bit, but he may not. So
yeah, and then the
we'll
final
see.
change, not too influential, but mainly just a quality of life change. The Great Web.
Yeah,
They're just
hated this
the
one.
people have spoken. Great Web is just annoying. So sure, go ahead and have it in the game. Just don't have it appear as often as it did because man, I mean, I can't tell you how many games
Yeah.
I've lost due to the randomness every single turn. And they even articulate, there was a lot of argument / conversation about the Great Web when it came out about how do you play into this. And it leads back to the conversation we've had here of what makes a good location for a featured location and what makes a good location as a healthy location to be put
Yeah.
into the pool at a certain percentage. And the Great Web is one of those that if you're going to have it in the pool, have it be incredibly rare, which is exactly what they've done. They moved it to the rarity of Ego and Worldship and what was formerly Krakoa. Like those,
I thought it
that's
says
super,
they're
super
one
rare.
below that. I thought it said it's one below that one.
Using
There's
the
only-
second tier
says-
only to the likes of Ego and Worldship. Yeah, it's the one right below it. So it's the
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's called ultra rare. I think it
Yeah.
is I forget somewhere in the site it has the terminology. I'll find it later. I wasn't that prepared for that portion.
So it'll
because
show up.
I just
It'll show
glad
up a
it's gone.
little. Yeah, so it'll show up a little more often than Ego and them, but still very, very rare. It's one of those things where it's almost like Danger Room in a way. Like Danger Room feels so bad in the fact that like when you
Yeah.
throw stuff in, you know it
Mhm.
always kills your stuff. But if
Yep.
you throw in Nova or you throw in Bucky, it never kills it.
Yep.
And this is the same
God, I hate
thing.
that location.
When you play something that needs to stick in a location
Mhm.
because it's like kiln and it's turning off, it always
Oh my
grabs
God,
yours.
yes.
And you're just like,
That's
why did it leave theirs?
Why not me? Or
Yeah.
why me? Why not them? Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
And then they added, and not in the OTA, they added it just into the Discord afterwards. So I threw it into the website also that some of the issues about being, cards being infinite split has been fixed also. But that's a sidebar.
Yeah, and
but
I don't know if they fixed them all, but if you have problems, put it out on Twitter and let them know because I know they were kind
Yes.
of running through all there of which ones they knew had issues because it was on a card by card basis for some reason.
I know, random layerings. Actually, we probably have a way to find that out too. So with this all said and all of these amazing changes, I kind of alluded to it. We have the Hitmonkey change that could make a statement into this. We have the Magik change, both of them being moved to 3-cost cards. And with Bounce being nerfed as hard as it had been, it leads to the idea of Silver Surfer becoming, at least to an actual conversation point, Silver Surfer could be very easily analyzed as the most consistent and best overall deck in the game right now because it has so many different iterations of it that are easy to run. Now we have a 7-turn variation of it that we can mix into all of this. You can play an ongoing variation. You can play on reveal variations. You can play ramp up variations. There are so many different mixes and metas that you can make now with Silver. Oh my God, I can't say this damn name. Silver Surfer deck. I challenge you to do it. The SS deck, right? The double S deck. There we go. We'll make it easier for me. Into the double S deck that now I think it's a really worthwhile conversation to say as we look for the next meta post bounce. Is it Silver Surfer? Because there's a lot of argument, and I have up on the YouTube screen the article by Brad Safer who put out The Rise of Silver Surfer. This was a couple days ago. This was before the announcement of these changes. of all the different ways you can look at Silver Surfer. They talk about the Lammy variation that has grown to popularity with Ghost Rider and Black Cat, and the redone Gambit, who got some love. You know, you look
I've
at the
got an even
Sarah
better one.
variations. Yeah, we looked at the Jean Grey new variations with also Dazzler in there. Like, there's a lot of iterations of what you can do with this deck. So I think it's worth bringing up as its own topic, because I do
Yeah.
truly believe that Silver Surfer could very easily be revered as the best overall archetype in the game again.
So I would agree with you. I think that when you look at this, and this is always something we talk about when OTAs happen, right? There's a couple points that you have to look at. Anything that moves to a 3, you have to instantly put against Silver Surfer and say, does it make it in the deck now? Is it good enough for this deck now? If it goes to a 4, you have to put it up against Zabu and say, all right, is this a Zabu card? Does this work with Darkhawk? Does it work with, Rock Slide? All of the 4s, Iron Lad, whatever it is, right? And when you have these big changes, which is in agreement with you, I think that Magic will go to a 4 because this will become too rampant. I will also agree with you that Sarah is going to now become a staple, because you're going to give you a turn 7, then you're going to Sarah on 5, you're going to get 3 drops on 6, another 3 drops on 7, if you have that many cards in your hand. Like, there's an argument that Moon Girl could come back. So I'm going to put on my mad scientist hat, right? So I want to throw some of these things out. So doesn't matter what we're doing. Maybe it's Goose. Maybe it's Goose on 2. Maybe it's your Nova Killmonger, pieces
Package
together. I don't know. Yeah, maybe, your 1 drop or whatever. You're magicking on 3. Like, you already know that's what you're going to do to use your energy the most efficient. Magic on 3. And then you're going to Sarah on 5. So you could, in order to make sure you have enough 3 drops, you could run a Moon Girl and hit your Moon Girl on turn 4. So you're still on curve. You've magicked, you've Moon Girled. Now you have 2 surfers. You have 2 whatever you want. And this is where it gets a little crazy in my mind.
Uh-oh.
You got Hit Monkey.
Yep.
Because Hit Monkey now is a 3. And if you're playing 3 cards at a time, you Surfer and you Beast.
Yep.
On turn 6. And so now your Hit Monkey's big. Your Surfer also hit your Hit Monkey and hit a bunch of stuff. And now you're picking them up at 1s. So now you have 2 1s and you have a couple 2s into your final turn. And now your final turn, you're playing maybe your Brood, maybe your Shadow King on the lane that had your Goose or something. I don't know. Like, you're going to have to kind of really figure out where your bottom half of your deck is. Your Killmonger, your whatever on turn 7, but your turn 7, you're dropping Surfer again. You're dropping a Hit Monkey again. You're dropping your Beast already there. You're dropping, I don't know, Maximus, Brood, Dazzler. Like, you're gonna have a full board, and potentially 2 Surfers. I don't know, because you've Moon Girled potentially earlier. Like, I think that this is going to be what's going to be crazy. Now, is it going to be predictable putting Beast and Hit Monkey in there? Probably not. But I want to put on the mad scientist hat. I want to make it slightly less surfery, like we've come to know of Surfer, to see what we can do with it. But I think if you wanted to go over the top, that's where you go, because the thing that Surfer always struggled against, which Shadow King does help with, is the giant decks. The Taskmaster, Red Skull that came off of Shuri or something like that. So just be prepared. Surfer's a great deck. It can compete with so many things, but the thing that Surfer has always struggled with in the past is the giant, big, huge cards coming down. Like your Evo deck kept it in check with the big Hulks and the Magnetos and everything coming off of, your Lockjaw variants. So if this does become a big thing, you will see Red Skull come back. So you need to make sure you have Shadow King in mind, and you will probably see these Lockjaw big card decks come back as well.
I mean, next time you want to be a mad scientist, at least take the tinfoil hat, you can,
I have to make me one. I have to make me one to have it on hand.
I mean, mine's always here. I always have it ready to go, just in case. But
Mhm.
scientifically, if you will, with the breakdown, now knowing that we can play into this turn 5, 6, 7 differently because of
Yeah.
Magic. Um, having a turn 7 with this many cards being able to hit the board regularly is wild.
Yeah.
Which is why I do think it will get adjusted. 1000%. I think it's going to be within 30 days that Magic gets moved to a 4 cost. Make it a 4/4 or even a 4/3, somewhere in there. I'm okay with either.
Yeah.
But I look at the Silver Surfer deck from a different aspect also, where yes, you touched on the Hit Monkey piece, where the Beast and the Hit Monkey now are 3 costs together that you can pair together and get extra, oomph out on because you have an extra turn. I love exactly what you said with the bouncing of the Silver Surfer back into the hand and then do it all again on turn 7 again and ramp up those lanes in particular. There are some big cards we can add into this. But there's always a way to build a Silver Surfer deck now because of the regularity of being able to have 7 turns.
Yeah.
Always a different way to build a Silver Surfer deck depending on the meta. Where if it's a 2-lane meta, and what I mean by that is you look at your, Shuri Red Skull Taskmaster meta. That was a 2-lane meta.
Mhm.
That was I need to go super tall in 2 lanes to be able to compete with this. And
Yeah.
the third one is just kind of, bonus fodder. Don't really think about it too much. I throw my 0 there afterwards, the kind of a location.
Yeah.
This now can compete with that because you have the option of multiple procs of Silver Surfer. And kind of similar to what you're thinking about and doing there, that's what I was doing by throwing Wong into the deck. Because I actually took out the staple variation of Killmonger and Nova. Because Nova only gives me the ones all across the board one time, and I really like the ceiling of Dazzler. So I knew that my Dazzler would never be able to be maxed out. But now with Wong in there, I could throw Nakia down, the brand new 3/3 Nakia, and she can give +2 to everything in your hand, and then also get ramped up. And then, oh yeah, that Silver Surfer goes on that Wong and procs off twice also, instead of having to pick up and be put down twice. So the similar idea of being able to ramp and ramp and ramp and ramp over extended turns now is incredibly easy, in my opinion, with Silver Surfer. So whether you need to go wide or you just need to ramp narrow, the deck can now do both things because of the ease of knowing that in the curve of how the deck flows, you can fit Magic. And it won't be a dead space in a lane that just sits at 3 power and doesn't get any ramping ability unless if Nova goes off. So it's an incredibly powerful piece to looking at the future meta of what happens with Silver Surfer decks. And I think that we're on this upcoming Saturday, we have the second battle arena. And then next Saturday, we have the Snap.fan open, registrations open and everything. All the advertisements are going out this week. We're working on our caster lineups. Like we're getting ready for the big July open. And I expect to see an ungodly amount of Silver Surfer, to be honest, because there are so many different ways to build it. And now with Magic, it's just even easier and even more consistent. I invite you guys to also please go read Brad Ziffer's article on this on snap.fan. It's a great layout of looking at different ways to keep up with certain deck building styles, as well as how to strategize your specific deck build and why each one plays differently. Like it's a very, very good article. I highly recommend it.
And I think that the way you can build it, like you're mentioning, makes Surfer so flexible in the fact that, if you're a lockdown player, that's when you go and get your Juggernaut Storm combo in there. If Shuri makes a huge rise, that's how you beat it. You essentially storm a lane on 3, and then you Cosmo a lane. And then all of a sudden now, you see where they played their Red Skull because it's going behind the Shuri. So now you just Cosmo the other lane that's not locked out, and okay, you can't make Taskmaster, so what are you doing? So like there's so many different paths you can do with the deck, and I think that that's where we will start to get that rise of Cosmo, some of these cards that kind of disappeared for a while because Cosmo shuts off Surfer with a lot of their procs as well. So it will be fun to see over the next 2 weeks what the meta does with Bounce getting a hit. We saw a high Evo, really didn't get much of a hit, but for some reason it disappeared. So,
Yeah.
that deck will probably pop back up a little bit. We've got the Thanos Lockjaw decks that may make a comeback as well. So a lot of different possibilities, popping out pretty soon, and I'm excited. I'm excited for these changes in general. Whether Surfer becomes number one or something brand new comes out of it, I'm here for it.
Yeah. I am a huge fan, and I'm gonna wrap with the deck of the week piece on this, because we all need fun, right? We all need a really
Mhm.
fun deck to play into. And if you have, certain cards and certain collections and you have the ability to do so, if you can run a Hela deck for fun, go run a
Yeah.
Hela deck for fun. But if you're trying to climb with a Hela deck, I'm going to highly recommend the deck that I ran last night from 80 to 97. And that was the
Mhm.
Magic Tribunal. This is the one that I was, alluding to earlier. And it is just an unfair build for Magic and for the Living Tribunal and for Hela. So what we did for our audio listeners, the deck is Invisible Woman, Magic, Crystal, Iron Lad, Iron Man, MODOK, Hela, America Chavez, Living Tribunal, She-Hulk, Giganto, and the Infinite. Now, the way that this deck works is, given all of the cards that are in your hand at almost any given time, you have several different outs to being able to pull the MODOK Hela combo. And even if you get blocked by putting down Invisible Woman and someone plays their Cosmo, you have several different ways to say, okay, I can Living Tribunal wide. Or I can also, since I've got Magic, play that down and then just go with the Infinite and She-Hulk on turn 7 by skipping turn
Mhm.
6. So you've got 29 power that you can drop on down. And Crystal, we were back and forth on this part of it, and in a Hela deck, it actually makes a lot of sense. Now with Magic, knowing how tall this deck goes, even in competition decks that get their perfect scenario, because think about it, if you're playing into turn 7 and you're giving them a card draw, they're going to be pulling 11 out of the 12 cards in their deck. But the thing is, so are you. And with
Yeah.
Iron Lad in this deck, even if that 12th card that's hiding is the Hela or the MODOK that you were waiting for, you've played it down knowing that it could potentially draw that. So
Yeah.
the amount of times we got Hela to pop off versus the past, where it always seems like it's a 50-50 shot of will Hela work or will Hela not. The
Yeah.
cleanliness of this deck, because you can play Invisible Woman down on 2. You can get Magic down on turn 3 now. If you don't have Iron Lad or you don't think that you're set up properly for it, you play Crystal on 4 to get the card draw. Or you can even hide Crystal behind the Invisible Woman to get another card that will be discarded by
Yeah.
MODOK and then brought back. Like, it was just such a consistent deck. There was one stretch where we had, I think it was 32 cubes in 6 games. Just
Yeah.
8 cuber, 8 cuber, 8 cuber, 4 cuber, 1 cuber, 8 cuber. It was something crazy like that in the stats. And it's the only time I've ever seen Hela do that consistent personally,
Yeah.
but to the
I
next level. Like, absolutely
yeah,
fantastic.
and I think that that's one thing where, to your point, like Cosmo right now has kind of disappeared for the most part from the meta. So an easy thing is if Cosmo, because of Surfer, if Cosmo comes back everywhere, you mentioned it earlier in the cast as well. Bring in your Echo if you have her. I get
Yeah.
she's brand new. You may not have got her in the spotlight, but if you have her, you put her there before Invisible Woman. This is probably the only deck I will say that I can see Crystal being a good card in. You know
Right.
how I hate the crystal change,
I
but
know you
I
do.
can see
I know you do,
with
but this works
with
for that
yeah.
exact reason.
And again, like typically I would have just said if Crystal was where she was, how she used to be, you could still do that. You would just reshuffle all your hands. But I'm okay with getting the one extra card. And really the only 2 cards that truly affect this deck in general is Cosmo and like Enchantress, right? Or I guess Polaris as well, where they can pull
Yeah,
your
I
Invisible
did get
Woman if you've
Polaris
already
once.
started
That did
attacking.
suck. That did
Yeah.
suck.
So
Polaris
so
did pull
that's
off.
those are and those are the cards you have to be aware of, because with the rise of Silver Surfer, Polaris plus Cosmo will start to be show up more often. But I do like your She-Hulk, Infinite, whatever plan at the end, because I mean, Surfer may be able to get 20 in a lane, but it's difficult. It's got to take the
Oh,
right
yeah.
cards being in the lane to get to 20. So if you've already started doing other stuff in other lanes, She-Hulk plus that, you may be able to win your 2 lanes over
Yeah.
the Surfer matchup. So I
Being
definitely
able
like
to
where this is.
Yeah, being able to scale on this is incredibly easy, obviously, because it
Mm.
has other win cons built into it. It has that, like I said, the She-Hulk Infinite win con built into it. It has the Iron Man Living Tribunal actual play line built into it. And I posted this up on Twitter like way too late at night last night. Woke up to several thousand views on the deck, and a lot of people going, but then what if you get Cosmode? It's like, okay, well, first off, if you get Cosmode, again, there are other win conditions built into the deck. And then the second part to it is, if you're trying to take this into Conquest, you're
Yeah.
putting in Echo. Because Echo, as I've said
Yeah.
in multitude, is a Conquest and tournament card and is built for consistency. So if you want this deck to be even more consistent rather than the successful high roll, the
Yeah.
way you do it is you take out probably Crystal out of the deck and then go ahead and put in Echo. And then it's more
Yeah.
consistent all by itself when it comes to getting the combination to execute rather than pulling the combination, which is what the high roll piece on ladder pays off as, which is why Crystal works in that part of the deck. Because if you draw everything, you just hide Crystal behind your Invisible Woman also, and life is good, and you get that extra draw.
Yeah.
If not, she's an insurance clause to pull that potential card. Because there were several times where I played Magic on 3, Crystal on 4, and then I finally pulled Invisible Woman on 5, so I could lay down MODOK and Hela on 6 and 7. Like,
Yeah.
it was really clean and consistent, and Chavez worked great in this deck specifically to know that if I did not get the Magic win condition, I knew if I had my Iron Man Tribunal line ready to go, I was making really, really big strides with this deck. And it's the only Hela deck I would tell people justifies Living Tribunal, in my opinion, because it was a fun, cheeky play with Hela when Living Tribunal came out and was the best use case for Tribunal. To me, this now solidifies Tribunal as a necessity in a Hela deck. And as we talked about in the beginning, that there are other decks that you can use. Well, at the beginning of the stream, actually, not this podcast, sorry.
Yeah.
That Living Tribunal now has other use cases where, you know what, maybe pulling it isn't such a bad thing this current week.
Yeah. I like it. I like the deck. I'm gonna give it some play. I'm gonna try it out again. Hela did good for me last season in general.
Yeah.
And this seems like a very more consistent version of it because of the Magic change. Because of again, I have to try Crystal. I see it because you get 7 turn 7, which means you get one more draw. You get a Crystal, which is another draw. Like, you're more likely to see both the pieces of your combo pieces. Now you just have to dodge the ham. And if you can dodge the ham, you're good. I know that you have multiple six drops, which help.
Even if you get hit by ham, we got hit by ham several times. It hit other.
I'm just saying you're Hela. Yeah. So
the chance that Hela gets hit by ham is infinitely reduced comparatively to how it was beforehand, where it could be turn 1. There you go. Goodbye. Game over.
Yeah.
I love this deck. I love this deck. I preach this deck. I think it's going to be worthwhile to get out there to more eyes. So, with that said, good sir, I know this is a later afternoon recording for both of us versus the normal, so I'm going to attempt to get this out there into the magical world. Ooh, because we have other things I know that you and I are going to get ready for Snap.fan today. So, everybody, please let everybody know who you are and where they can find you.
Yeah. So I am Default Dan, and if you want to hang out with us, and typically live on Mondays to watch this, at least in the foreseeable future for now, you can check us out over at twitch.tv/defaultdan. If you want to check out YouTube content and stuff like that, like I said, I'm working on some videos. Hopefully we'll have some stuff up pretty soon. You can go over to youtube.com/defaultdan. If you want to hang out with us on Wednesday nights, so you typically, me and guest hang out over there at the snap.fan Twitch, so twitch.tv/snap.fan. We do the Wednesday night snaps. So even if you don't see me on screen, I'm always there listening in the background, checking the chat, running all the stuff in the background. But usually you see guest up there. We had Super Tech God this last week. We had GC James. We had Offbeat, several others popping in, Matrim from time to time. So if you guys definitely want to just hang out with us for fun snapping competition that's not super sweaty or anything like that, Wednesday nights over there, we do a 4-round tournament. So come hang out with us, play some snap, have some fun. And of course, not this weekend, but next weekend. So if you're listening to this way later on, there'll be another one. Don't worry. But we've got the big Snap Fan Open for July in 2 weeks. So we'll be there all day that Saturday hanging out.
Yes, sir.
If you want to meet us in person, last thing, SnapCon. So if you want to meet us in person, we will be at SnapCon here in Tampa. Guest is flying up, going to be hanging out with us. And there's going to be tons of people. Super Tech God's going to be there. We're going to have Felicity, Jolly Roger. Like, there's so many names coming. It's going to be awesome. Panels, award shows, creators, tournaments. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's going to be so much fun. So get your tickets. Come on out. Hang out with us in Tampa. Have some fun. Win some prizes. Do all kinds of stuff. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it will be a lot of fun. I'm super looking forward to, how this is all going to play on out over the next few weeks, because a lot is changing for us. A lot is changing for me. For those who do not know who I am, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. You typically find me here on this channel that we're recording on today on, my live stream here on twitch.tv/ItsGuestGaming. You can find the recording of the video recording on YouTube, which YouTube content will be coming back, not just the podcast videos, youtube.com/ItsGuestGaming. But basically, just type in that name. You'll find me everywhere. Twitter, Threads, technically Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Discord, name it on. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. So, Default Dan, I think we've hit a hell of a lot today. I think it's a good moment to tell those kind folks thank you. Thank you so much. Hopefully you like, rate, and let us know what you think here on the Snap Back podcast, where you snap and we snap back. Default Dan, say goodbye to all the lovely people.
Y'all take it easy, guys.
You know what's great here? I actually have control for once. So I don't have to worry about you cutting the recording short. So I can just continue to vamp. It's nice to alleviate the control, every now and then. But at the same time, I know I have the power. So I feel good about it.